The great hall of Veltar Prime stretched before them like a crystal cathedral. Hien Woo Kim stood at the center of the massive chamber, his dark suit looking plain against the shimmering walls that seemed to bend light itself. Around him, creatures from across the galaxy watched from floating platforms that hovered at different heights, creating a living amphitheater of alien observers. Hien Woo had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Ever since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Confederation, every diplomatic protocol had led to this single presentation. Earth's fate would be decided in the next hour. The Veltari ambassador floated down from the highest platform, its crystalline body catching the strange blue light that filled the chamber. Ambassador, the Su, I moved with fluid grace each step, creating musical tones that echoed through the hall. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once, a harmony of crystal chimes that the translation devices converted into cold, precise words. The species, known as humans, requests membership. In the Galactic Confederation, Dexu, I announced, we shall now review their technological achievements and cultural development. Soyoung Park shifted nervously in the human delegation area. As Earth's lead xenobiologist, she had spent months preparing detailed reports on human diversity and GSA's adaptation. Her research showed how humanity had thrived in every environment on Earth, from frozen tundra to burning deserts. She believed this adaptability would impress the Alien Council. She was wrong. The first display showed human space technology. A hologram of the International Space Station rotated slowly above the chamber floor, followed by images of chemical rockets and lunar landing modules. The assembled aliens examined the primitive machines with what could only be described as polite disgust. Chemical propulsion, said the Clithar representative, its insect-like mandibles clicking together. How quaint. Our larvae build more sophisticated devices for play. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind reserved for amusing children who had built something cute but useless. Hien Woo felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. Years of diplomatic training had taught him to endure worse insults with grace. The next display showed human energy production. Coal plants, oil refineries, and early fusion reactors appeared in the hologram. The aliens watched with growing amazement at humanity's backward methods. They burned their planet's stored carbon for energy, observed a slug-like creature from the mollusk worlds. They seemed proud of this achievement. Fossil fuels, added another voice from somewhere in the floating crowd. We abandoned such practices before we achieved sentience. Soyoung watched her carefully prepared biological data appear next. The display showed human genetic diversity, the variety of human cultures, and Earth's incredible biodiversity. Right. She had hoped this would demonstrate humanity's greatest strength, but the alien reaction was immediate and negative. Chaos declared, the Sui studying the swirling genetic maps. Their species shows no optimization, no guided evolution. They reproduce randomly, creating endless variation without purpose. Look at their planet, said the Clithar representative. Thousands of languages, hundreds of governments, constant conflict between their own kind. No wonder their technology remains primitive. The floating platforms buzzed with conversation as aliens discussed humanity's flaws. Hien Woo caught fragments of their comments through the translation devices. Words like inefficient, wasteful, and undeveloped filled the air around him. Min-Ho Lee stood with the military observers, watching the proceedings with sharp eyes. As a career soldier, he noticed things that diplomats and scientists might miss. The aliens spoke of humanity's conflicts and wars as proof of barbarism, but Min-Ho saw something else. Every species in this chamber moved with careful, predictable patterns. Their technology was perfect, their society stable, their behavior orderly. They had forgotten how to fight. The cultural presentation came next. Human art, music, and literature filled the chamber with color and sound. Jazz music played, while abstract paintings rotated in the air. Poetry in dozens of languages scrolled past in holographic text. The aliens observed it all with the same detached interest they might show for an unusual mineral formation. Emotional chaos diagnosed a floating jellyfish-like creature. Their art lacks mathematical harmony. Their music contains deliberate imperfections. Their literature celebrates individual suffering over collective achievement. It explains their technological stagnation, added Dexu. I, a species that values chaos over order, cannot achieve true advancement. The final presentation showed human social structures. Democracy, capitalism, socialism, and dozens of other political systems appeared in the display. The aliens watched humans debate, argue, and disagree about everything from basic laws to the nature of existence itself. Inefficient beyond measure, declared the Clithar representative. Our species achieved perfect social harmony 30,000 years ago. These humans still cannot agree on basic governance principles. Perhaps, suggested the mollusk representative, they are too primitive to understand the benefits of unity. Haiyan-Wu felt something cold settle in his stomach. The presentation had gone exactly as Earth's leaders feared it might. Humanity's greatest achievements looked like chaotic mistakes to these perfect, ordered civilizations. The voting began immediately. Each species announced their decision with formal dignity. The Veltari voted for restricted membership with technological limitations. The Clithar suggested humanity needed another 1,000 years of development before reconsidering. The mollusk worlds recommended placing human space under protective guidance, one by one. Every species in the Confederation delivered the same message: humanity was too primitive, too chaotic, too violent to join galactic civilization as equals. The decision is unanimous, Thetsu, I announced when the voting ended. The species known as humans shall be classified as developing primitives. They will be granted limited trading rights within restricted space zones. They're forbidden from accessing advanced technology or participating in Confederation governance. The crystal hall filled with polite applause. The aliens had handled an awkward situation with appropriate dignity. They had found a way to deal with these strange, violent creatures without being cruel or dismissive. Haiyan-Wu stood in the center of it all, listening to alien laughter echo off the crystal walls, laughter at human wars, human chaos, human imperfection. The sound followed him as he gathered his delegation and prepared to leave. Sir Soyoung whispered as they walked toward the exit. What do we tell Earth? Haiyan-Wu paused at the great doors of the chamber. Behind them, aliens continued discussing humanity's quaint primitiveness and amusing technological attempts. They spoke of humans the way adults might discuss, particularly energetic children who needed gentle guidance and firm boundaries. We tell them the truth, Haiyan-Wu said quietly. We tell them that the galaxy considers us animals. Minho joined them at the doors, his expression thoughtful. Sir, did you notice something interesting about their questions? What do you mean? They asked about our technology, our culture, our society, Minho said. But they never asked about our wars. They saw the conflicts in our history and dismissed them as primitive chaos. They never asked how we won those wars. Haiyan-Wu looked back at the crystal chamber where alien representatives continued their civilized discussions. Perfect beings from perfect worlds, discussing the fate of imperfect humanity with perfect logic and flawless reasoning. What are you thinking, Colonel? Minho smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. I'm thinking, sir, that they're about to learn something interesting about animals. The great doors closed behind them with a musical chime, shutting out the sound of alien laughter. In the perfect halls of Veltar Prime, the Galactic Confederation continued its orderly business. Secure in their wisdom and confident in their superiority, they had no idea what they had just unleashed upon the galaxy. 3 years had passed since humanity's rejection from the Galactic Confederation. In that time, humans had learned to live with their restricted status, trading basic goods with alien merchants while being carefully watched by Confederation patrols. Most humans accepted their place as the galaxy's newest primitive species. Then the Krill came. Dayun Choi stood in the command center of Agissa 7, watching the massive defense station's displays fill with urgent red warnings. As a tactical consultant, she had been hired by the Confederation to help analyze new threats. Her official title was Primitive Warfare Specialist, a job that mostly involved explaining why humans fought each other so much. Today, that expertise became suddenly valuable. What are we looking at? asked Commander Vexai, the station's Veltari leader. Its crystalline form vibrated with nervous energy as more reports flooded in from the outer rim. The Krill Empire, Dayun said, studying. The tactical displays. They've just destroyed 3 Confederation outposts in the Kepler sector. Their ships are unlike anything in our databases. The main display showed grainy footage from the last moments of Outpost GAM-7. Strange, organic-looking ships that seemed to grow and change shape during battle had overwhelmed the station's defenses in minutes. The Confederation forces had fought bravely but uselessly, their perfect formations crumbling against an enemy that refused to follow established combat rules. "Impossible," declared Science Officer Thilmer. "A Peasaw insect like Clithar. Protocols have protected the Confederation for millennia.
Ow.
No primitive species could develop weapons capable of penetrating our shields." Doyun watched the footage again, noting details that the aliens missed. "Commander, may I suggest that the Krill aren't primitive? They're using biomechanical technology that adapts during combat. Your standard protocols assume the enemy will fight the same way throughout the battle." "Of course they will," Vexai replied. "All logical species develop optimal combat strategies and maintain them. To change tactics mid-battle would be chaos." "Yes," Dayun said quietly. "It would be." More reports arrived hourly. The Krill fleet was moving deeper into Confederation space, destroying everything in their path. Their ships seemed to learn from each battle, adapting their weapons and defenses to counter whatever the Confederation threw at them. Admiral Corthan of the Mollusk Worlds took command of the Confederation's response fleet. His strategy was textbook perfect: establish defensive lines, concentrate firepower, and engage the enemy at maximum range where Confederation technology held clear advantages. The Krill destroyed his fleet in 4 hours. They don't fight like any species in our databases, reported the surviving ship captains. Their vessels changed shape mid-battle. Their weapons evolved to counter our defenses. They coordinate without any detectable communication network.
Ow.
Fear spread through the Confederation like a virus. For the first time in thousands of years, their perfect technology and flawless strategies had failed completely. Emergency sessions convened on every major world as political leaders struggled to understand how their invincible military could be losing to unknown aliens. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Jin Sukong received the Confederation's official warning about the Krill threat. The message was typically condescending, informing humanity that dangerous aliens were approaching their restricted space zone and that humans should prepare for evacuation to safer areas under Confederation protection. Ginsu read the message 3 times, then called an emergency meeting of Earth's military leaders. "Gentlemen," he said, addressing the assembled officers in the underground command center beneath Seoul, "we have an opportunity." General Eugen Park leaned forward. "Sir, the Confederation's entire fleet is being destroyed. How is that an opportunity?" "Because," Ginsu replied, pulling up tactical displays of the Krill attacks, "these aliens fight like humans do." The room fell silent as the officers studied the battle footage. The Krill ships moved in loose formations that shifted constantly. They used hit-and-run tactics, sacrificed damaged vessels to save crews, and adapted their strategies based on battlefield conditions rather than pre-planned doctrines. "They're using guerrilla warfare principles," observed Colonel Sung-Woo Kim. "The Confederation has no defense against that because they've never encountered it before." "Exactly," Jinsu said. "Every species in the Confederation has been trained to fight the same way, maximize efficiency, minimize losses, follow optimal strategies. They've forgotten how to deal with chaos." Young Captain Sumin Lee raised her hand. "Sir, are you suggesting we help the Confederation?" "I'm suggesting we demonstrate human capabilities," Jinsu replied. "The galaxy dismissed us as primitive animals. Perhaps it's time to show them what animals can do when cornered." The message went out that evening through official Confederation channels. Earth offered military assistance against the Krill threat. The response was immediate and predictable. The Animals Place Soldier transmitted Fleet Commander Zethic of the Veltar Defense Force. "Perhaps they'll learn something before they die." Similar responses came from across the Confederation. Amusement, condescension, and thinly veiled mockery filled the official replies. A few worlds suggested using human forces as cannon fodder to buy time for Confederation fleets to regroup. EU-UNG. Nam watched these exchanges from her position in the Confederation technology archives on Veltar Prime, as one of the few humans granted access to alien databases. She had spent years studying Confederation history and technology development. What she found disturbed her. Every species that joined the Confederation followed the same pattern. They arrived with unique technologies, creative solutions, and innovative approaches to problems. Within a few generations, they had abandoned their original methods in favor of optimal Confederation standards. The Veltari had once been master warriors, but they had given up their combat traditions for peaceful crystal meditation. The Clithar had created amazing biotechnologies. They abandoned those for more efficient mechanical alternatives. The mollusk worlds had developed incredible adaptability, but they traded it for stable, predictable societies. Each species had sacrificed what made them unique for the promise of perfection. No wonder they can't fight the Krill, Yanji muttered, scrolling through centuries of military doctrine. Every battle plan, every strategy, every tactical manual followed the same basic principles: maintain order, minimize chaos, achieve victory. Through superior technology and organization, it was exactly the opposite of how humans fought wars. The Krill fleet reached the edge of human space 2 weeks later. Long-range sensors detected 47 biomechanical ships, each one larger than anything in Earth's Navy. They moved in a loose cloud formation, their hulls shifting and changing as they approached. Admiral Jinsu stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching the alien armada approach. Around him, officers prepared for humanity's first real space battle against an alien enemy. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Myung-bae, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead Krill vessel." "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was harsh and mechanical, translated through primitive human equipment. "Inferior species, submit to Krill authority. Your primitive technology cannot resist our evolution." Jinsu smiled. "Tell them this, Communications. We're not trying to resist their evolution. We're going to teach them about revolution." The first shots were fired 20 minutes later. The Battle of Luna had begun, and with it, humanity's chance to show the galaxy what primitive animals could accomplish when they stopped pretending to be civilized. In the depths of space, human fighters moved against alien bioships using tactics that no Confederation species would ever consider. They were about to learn that sometimes the best way to defeat evolution was with good, old-fashioned chaos. The Krill had never faced anything like humanity. Neither had the galaxy. Captain Dong Hyen, you gripped the controls of his fighter as Luna grew larger in his view screen. Behind him, 37 other human pilots flew in loose formation toward the approaching Krill fleet. Their ships were older models, built with human technology that the Confederation considered barely functional. "Dragon Squadron, this is Dragon Leader Dong Han, spoken to as come. Remember, these bioships adapt to our tactics. Don't give them time to learn." The Krill vessels hung in space like living nightmares. Each ship was the size of a Confederation cruiser, but they moved with organic fluidity. Their hulls rippled and changed color as internal systems shifted to prepare for battle. Long tentacle-like appendages extended from their sides, bristling with weapons that seemed to grow and reshape themselves. "Dragon Leader, this is Luna Base," came Admiral Jinsu's voice through the static. "You are cleared for attack pattern. Chaos. Good hunting. Attack pattern chaos." It wasn't in any Confederation tactical manual, because no sane military commander would ever use it. The plan was simple. Hit the enemy with everything available. Change tactics constantly, and accept heavy losses to achieve maximum damage. The Confederation observers watching from their safe monitoring stations expected to witness humanity's destruction in minutes. They were half right. Dong Hain led his squadron straight at the largest Krill bioship. Instead of the careful, long-range engagement the aliens expected, the humans dove directly into close combat range. The Krill ship's weapons tracked them, firing beams of energy that seemed to learn and adapt with each shot. Dragon 7 is Hit, reported Park Min-seek, as his fighter spun out of control. Hull breach, engines failing. In any Confederation battle, Min-seek would have retreated to a safe distance for rescue. Instead, he aimed his damaged fighter directly at the Krill ship's weapons cluster. Dragon 7, ramming speed. He called out calmly. Tell my wife I love her. The explosion when his fighter struck the bioship sent ripples across its living hull. The Krill vessel writhed in what might have been pain, its weapon systems faltering as it tried to heal the damage. Now, Dong Han ordered. All fighters, target the wound. The remaining Dragon Squadron fighters swarmed around the damaged area, pouring fire into the breach Min-seek had created. The Krill ship's adaptive systems couldn't keep up with the concentrated assault on its wounded section. But the other Krill vessels were learning. Dragon Leader, multiple contacts closing fast, warned Young Ho-seok from Dragon 5. They're adapting to our attack pattern. 3 more bioships moved to intercept the human fighters, their weapons already shifting too. Counter the small ship's speed and maneuverability. The Krill had analyzed the human tactics and developed countermeasures. That was when they learned their first lesson about fighting humans. Adaptation works both ways. All fighters, new pattern, Deng Haiyang commanded. Swarm formation, Alpha. Target. The smallest ship. The human fighters suddenly changed their entire approach, abandoning their attack on the large vessel to converge on a smaller Krill bioship. But this wasn't a conventional attack either. Instead of trying to destroy it, they surrounded it completely, using their fighters as shields to prevent it from communicating with the other ships. Dragon Squadron, prepare for transfer, ordered Dong Da-hyun. Dong, what happened next shocked every observer in the system. The human fighters didn't just attack the isolated bioship. They boarded it. Lee Kyung-min led the boarding party through jury-rigged airlocks, carrying weapons and equipment designed for ship-to-ship combat in the cramped confines of a living vessel. The interior of the Krill ship was like moving through the digestive system of some massive creature, with walls that pulsed and floors that shifted underfoot. This is insane, Kyung-min reported over the com. The entire ship is alive. The walls are trying to close around us. Then move faster, replied Dong Han. Find their control center. The boarding party fought their way deeper into the bioship, using grenades and plasma cutters against living walls that tried to trap them. They encountered Krill crew members for the first time, tall, Satanist beings with multiple arms and compound eyes that reflected no emotion humans could recognize. The battle inside the ship was brutal and chaotic. The Krill fought with biological weapons that seemed to grow from their own bodies, while the humans used every dirty trick they had learned from centuries of warfare against their own species. Found it, Kyung-min called out as his team broke into a chamber that pulsed with bioluminescent displays. Looks like a brain center. Setting charges now. The explosion gutted the bioship from within. But instead of just destroying it, humans had done something unprecedented. They had captured Krill technology. Dr. Su Bin-jang watched the battle from Luna Base, analyzing both human and alien behavior through her psychological expertise. She had been studying Confederation military doctrine for months, and what she observed confirmed her worst fears. Admiral, she reported to Jin-su, the Confederation species have been conditioned to minimize casualties above all else. Their entire military philosophy is based on achieving victory with minimal losses. And that's a problem, because the Krill don't care about losses, Su Bin explained. They're evolutionarily driven to adapt and overcome, regardless of cost. The Confederation can't match that mindset, but we can. On the main display, more human fighters were engaging the remaining Krill bioships. But now they were using captured Krill biotechnology. Weapons ripped from the destroyed vessel and hastily mounted on human fighters. Colonel Young Mi-han led the second wave of attacks, commanding a mixed squadron of human fighters equipped with living Krill weapons. The biotechnology responded to human control in ways its creators never intended. It's becoming more aggressive and unpredictable under human influence. The weapons are evolving, Young Mi reported with excitement. They're adapting to work with our fighters, becoming something new. The Krill fleet found themselves facing an enemy that not only matched their adaptability, but exceeded it. Humans. didn't just adapt to new situations. They took the enemy's own advantages and turned them into weaknesses. 3 hours into the Battle of Luna, the impossible happened. The Krill fleet began to retreat. Dragon leader to Luna base, Donghain reported, his voice tired but triumphant. Enemy vessels withdrawing from human space. Count 12 bioships destroyed, 8 damaged, and 1 captured intact. The cost had been terrible. Half of Dragon's squadron was gone, along with hundreds of other human pilots and soldiers. They had achieved something the Confederation thought impossible. They had defeated the Krill in open combat. Across the galaxy, alien observers struggled to understand what they had witnessed. The Confederation's military experts analyzed the battle footage over and over, trying to comprehend how primitive human technology had succeeded where their advanced fleets had failed. Ambassador Haiyan Wu received the first communication within hours of the battle's end. Came directly from the Confederation High Council on Veltar Prime. The Galactic Confederation wishes to negotiate humanity's immediate elevation to full membership status. The message read, "Your species has demonstrated capabilities that warrant immediate reconsideration of your classification." Haiyan Wu read the message twice, then looked out at the debris field where human fighters had died to protect their world. In the distance, salvage crews were already working to recover krill. Biotechnology from the captured vessel. The galaxy that had dismissed humanity as animals now wanted to embrace them as equals. But something had changed during the Battle of Luna. Humanity had tasted victory against impossible odds. And they had learned something important about themselves. They didn't need the Confederation's approval anymore. "Prepare a response, Haiyan Wu," told his aide. "Tell them we'll consider their offer." The galaxy was about to learn that awakened animals were far more dangerous than sleeping ones. The Confederation High Council chamber had never been so quiet. President Ruan Lim stood where Haiyan Wu had stood 4 years earlier, but everything had changed. The floating platforms around her held the same alien dignitaries, but their attitudes were completely different. Fear had replaced condescension. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Confederation," Ruan began, her voice carrying clearly through the crystal hall. "We have considered your offer of full membership. We decline." The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Lee's crystalline form dimmed with shock. The Clithar representative's mandibles clicked nervously. Even the usually calm, mollusk delegate showed signs of distress. "Perhaps, Li Su," I said carefully, "there has been a translation error. The Confederation offers humanity full membership, immediate access to all technologies, and voting rights in galactic governance." "Understand perfectly," Ruwan replied. "And we reject your offer. Instead, we propose something better. The complete restructuring of galactic civilization." The chamber erupted in voices from dozens of species. Angry clicks, musical tones, and harmonic vibrations filled the air as aliens argued among themselves. They had expected grateful acceptance from the primitive species they had rescued. "Explain this proposal, Lexu," I demanded when order was restored. "The Confederation system is broken," Ruwan said simply. "For thousands of years, you have absorbed species into your collective, erasing their unique strengths in favor of standardized perfection. It's created a galaxy incapable of defending itself against real threats." General Taiyong, SEO, watched the proceedings from the military observation area. Around him stood alien officers who had requested human tactical training after witnessing the Battle of Luna. In 3 months, requests for human military advisors had come from 47 different worlds. The revolution had already begun. General SEO called Commander Vexhai of the Valteri Defense Force. "My fleet commanders report that human tactical methods have increased our combat effectiveness by 300%. "How is this possible?" Taeyong smiled. "Because we taught your people to think like warriors instead of accountants. You were so focused on minimizing losses that you forgot how to win." The results spoke for themselves. Joint human-alien fleets. We're pushing the Krill back across a dozen sectors using tactics that horrified traditional Confederation strategists. Ships deliberately sacrificed themselves to save others. Commanders changed plans mid-battle based on battlefield conditions. Entire formations abandoned perfect efficiency in favor of chaotic effectiveness. It worked. Dr. Hedgenbay presented her research to the Confederation Science Council that same week. Her findings were revolutionary in the most literal sense. Every breakthrough technology in galactic history, she explained to the assembled alien scientists, was developed by species during their pre-Confederation periods. The fusion drives that power your ships, the crystal communication networks, the biomechanical interfaces, all came from chaotic, imperfect civilizations. The alien scientists studied her data with growing unease. The evidence was undeniable. Once species joined the Confederation and adopted standardized technologies, their innovation rates dropped to almost zero. But optimization increases efficiency, protested Dr. Riltak of the Veltari Science Institute.
Our
Perfect systems eliminate waste and maximize output. Yes, Hygen agreed. But they also eliminate the chaos necessary for breakthrough. Discoveries. Every major advancement requires someone to try something that shouldn't work. Your perfect systems prevent that kind of experimentation. The implications were staggering. The Confederation's greatest achievement, creating stable and efficient civilizations, was also its greatest weakness. They had traded innovation for optimization and lost the ability to grow. Meanwhile, the war with the Krill Empire was reaching its conclusion in the most unexpected way possible. Diplomatic. Chorus Chief Won-Suk Cho sat across from the first Krill ambassador ever to engage in formal negotiations. The meeting took place on a neutral space station, surrounded by both human and Confederation security forces. The Krill delegate was a towering creature of chitin and metal, its body a fusion of biological and mechanical components. When it spoke, its voice was a harsh mixture of organic sounds and electronic tones. "Your species fights with honor," the Krill ambassador said. "We did not expect to encounter worthy opponents in this galaxy. We fight to survive," Won-Suk replied. "Same as you. The Confederation species fight to preserve. The Krill fight to evolve, but humans fight to overcome. This is why we can find common ground." The negotiations that followed shocked the galaxy. Instead of demanding unconditional surrender, humanity offered the Krill something unprecedented. Partnership. It's not the absorption that the Confederation practiced, but true cooperation between different but equal species. "You seek to evolve through conquest," Won-Suk explained. "We seek to grow through challenge. Perhaps we can help each other." Krill Collective, as they renamed themselves, became humanity's first alien ally. The formal treaty was signed 3 weeks later, creating the first interspecies alliance in galactic history that didn't involve absorption into a larger collective. Engineer Commander Hyung Cha oversaw the first joint human-Krill manufacturing facility on the asteroid station New Geneva. The project horrified Confederation efficiency experts but produced remarkable results. "Look at this," Hyung said, showing visiting alien engineers a new type of starship engine. "We combined human redundancy principles with Krill adaptive biomechanics. The result is 30% less efficient than optimal Confederation designs. But it's self-repairing and can adapt to damage in real time." The alien engineers studied the engine with fascination and horror. It violated every principle of optimal design, with backup systems for the backup systems and biological components that could evolve new functions. It was ugly, inefficient, and absolutely revolutionary. "But the waste," protested a Veltari observer. "The redundant systems consume resources for no reason. Until the primary systems fail," Hyung pointed out. "Then the redundant systems keep the ship running. Confederation vessels are perfectly efficient until something goes wrong. Then they're perfectly dead." Across the galaxy, alien societies began experiencing something they hadn't felt in millennia: change. Human cultural exports spread through Confederation worlds like wildfire. Art that embraced imperfection, music that celebrated chaos, literature that explored individual struggle instead of collective harmony. Cultural ambassador. Sunhee found herself overwhelmed with requests from alien worlds wanting to establish cultural exchange programs. Young aliens, especially, seemed hungry for something their perfect societies couldn't provide. "What is it they're looking for?" asked Melsor, a young Veltari artist who had abandoned traditional crystal sculptures. "For chaotic human-style painting?" "Freedom to fail," Sunhee replied. "Your people have been taught that imperfection is wrong, that mistakes are failures. But humans learned long ago that mistakes are how we grow." The impact went far beyond art and culture. Human rights advocate Kyung-ho Chen worked with alien activists to establish the first interspecies equality movements. The Confederation's rigid caste systems, unchanged for thousands of years, began cracking under pressure from their own citizens. On Clithar Prime, workers demanded the right to change jobs. On the mollusk worlds, young beings challenged ancient social hierarchies. On Veltari homeworlds, individuals began questioning the collective wisdom that had guided their species for millennia. The revolution was spreading faster than any military conquest could have achieved. President Ruan concluded her address to the Confederation Council with a simple statement that would echo through galactic history. "We offer you a choice. You can continue trying to absorb us into your perfect system, or you can join us in building something better. A galaxy where different doesn't mean inferior, where chaos creates opportunity, and where every species can contribute their unique strengths without losing what makes them special." The vote that followed was not unanimous. For the first time in Confederation history, member species disagreed openly and dramatically. Some wanted to suppress the human revolution. Others wanted to embrace it completely. Most fell somewhere in between, uncertain but intrigued by the possibilities. But the vote didn't matter anymore. The revolution had already begun, and it couldn't be stopped by political decisions. Across the galaxy, beings who had never questioned their perfect societies were starting to wonder what they might be capable of if they were allowed to try. The animals had become teachers, and the galaxy was ready to learn. 5 years after humanity's rejection from the Galactic Confederation, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Cultural ambassador Sunhee walked through the floating gardens of New Veltar, watching alien children play games that would have horrified their grandparents. The young Veltari were finger painting with liquid crystal, creating chaotic swirls of color that pulsed and changed randomly. Their crystal bodies dimmed and brightened with excitement as they discovered that imperfection could be beautiful. Ambassador called Kilmesh, a young Veltari who had become Sunhee's assistant. The art galleries on 17 worlds are requesting human cultural advisors. They want to learn what you call creative rebellion. Sunhee smiled as she watched a group of Clithar children trying to sing human rock music with their clicking mandibles. The sound was terrible and wonderful at the same time. "Tell them we'll send teachers," she said. "But remind them that rebellion can't be taught. It has to be discovered." The changes went far beyond children's games. On Mollusk Prime, the ancient caste system that had divided society for 10,000 years was crumbling. Young mollusks refused to accept their assigned roles, choosing instead to pursue careers based on personal interest rather than genetic destiny. Human rights advocate Kyung-ho Chen had established the first Galactic Individual Rights Center on the asteroid station Freedom Point. The facility was overwhelmed with requests from aliens, seeking help to challenge their society's traditional restrictions. "I want to be a musician," said Velenora, a young Clithar whose family expected her to become a hive maintenance worker. "But my genetic profile says I'm not suitable for creative work." "Your genetic profile doesn't determine your dreams," Kyung-ho told her. "Humans learned that lesson thousands of years ago. Everyone deserves the chance to try and fail and try again." The waiting room outside his office was always full. Veltari who wanted to live alone instead of in crystal communes, mollusks who refused their mating assignments, Clithar who wanted to leave their hives. All of them seeking something their perfect societies had never offered. Choice, the revolution in individual rights, was matched by equally dramatic changes in galactic technology and medicine. Dr. Sungwon Moon led the human-alien medical exchange. From a hospital ship that traveled between worlds, bringing new approaches to healthcare across the galaxy. The problem with Confederation medicine, he explained to a group of alien doctors, is that you wait for perfect treatments before helping anyone. Humans learn to use imperfect solutions immediately while working toward better ones. The concept shocked alien medical professionals who had been trained to never act without complete certainty. On Veltar Prime, patients had died while doctors spent months calculating the optimal treatment. Human emergency medicine, with its emphasis on quick action and acceptable risk, saved lives that perfect medicine would have lost. Dr. Moon's mobile hospital carried human alien doctors who had learned to make fast decisions with incomplete information. They performed emergency surgeries that Confederation medical boards would have spent years approving. The results spoke for themselves. Survival rates improved dramatically across every world they visited. But what if you make mistakes? Asked Dr. Pilton, a mollusk surgeon who was learning human emergency techniques. Then we learn from the mistakes and do better next time, Moon replied. The goal isn't to avoid all errors. The goal is to save lives. Meanwhile, the former Krill Empire was experiencing its own transformation. The biomechanical warriors who had once terrified the galaxy were now the most enthusiastic adopters of human cooperation principles. Krill Human Liaison Officer Yen So Shim worked from the Joint Research Station Darwin's Dream, or human. Scientists and reformed Krill engineers developed technologies that neither species could have created alone. Look at this, she said, showing visiting Confederation scientists a new type of biomechanical computer. We combined human chaos theory with Krill adaptive evolution. The result is a computer that actually gets smarter the more problems you give it. The device in front of them looked like a cross between a circuit board and a living brain. It pulsed with organic rhythms while processing data at speeds that made traditional computers look like ancient calculators. The inefficiency must be enormous, said a Veltari observer, studying the readouts with dismay. Actually, it's incredibly efficient, Yanesio replied. But only after it's learned your specific problems. A Confederation computer stays the same forever. This one evolves. The implications terrified and excited alien scientists in equal measure. Technology that changed itself, improved itself, grew beyond its original programming. It violated every principle of predictable design. But it worked better than anything the Confederation had ever built. Fleet Admiral Ji-hoon Park oversaw the construction of the first human-designed starships in alien shipyards. The vessels combined technologies from dozens of species, but they were built using human engineering principles that prioritized adaptability over optimization. Every system has 3 backups, he explained to confused alien engineers. Every component can be repaired with basic tools. Every function has at least 2 different ways to accomplish it. The ships were larger and more complex than equivalent Confederation vessels, with redundant systems that seemed wasteful to efficiency-minded aliens. But they were also more survivable, more adaptable, and more capable of operating in hostile environments. What if the primary life support fails? Asked Velinari, Chief Engineer Tamat during a design review. Then secondary life support takes over, Ji-hoon replied. If that fails, emergency life support activates. If that fails, emergency environmental suits deploy automatically. But all those backup systems waste space and resources. Until you need them, Ji-hoon said simply. Confederation ships work perfectly until they don't work at all. Human ships keep working even when they're broken. The first human-designed starship, the U's Resilience, was launched from Veltari shipyards 6 months later. It was ugly by Confederation standards, bristling with sensor arrays, repair bays, and backup systems. But when a solar storm disabled half its systems during its maiden voyage, it kept flying when any Confederation ship would have been helpless. Orders for human-designed ships poured in from across the galaxy. The social changes were equally dramatic. On worlds that had known only stability for millennia, young beings began questioning everything their elders took for granted. Universities reported the first student protests in galactic history. Workers organized the first labor strikes. Artists created the first controversial art. It's chaos, complained Elder Kekstara of the Veltari High Council. Our young people are abandoning proven wisdom for dangerous experimentation. Yes, agreed Cultural Exchange Director Guy Young Lee. Isn't it wonderful? The numbers supported her optimism. Crime rates were dropping as beings found constructive outlets for their new individuality. Innovation rates soared as aliens began thinking outside their traditional boundaries. Even birth rates increased as beings chose their own partners instead of accepting genetic assignments. But perhaps the most dramatic change was happening in the schools. Alien children, taught by human-trained teachers, began learning concepts that had been forbidden for thousands of years: creative thinking, individual expression, and the value of productive failure. Young Veltari learned to ask what if, dead, of what should. Young Clithar discovered personal ambition beyond hive loyalty. Young mollusks began to dream of lives different from their parents. The galaxy's political leaders watched these changes with growing concern. Emergency sessions were called on every major world as traditional authorities struggled to maintain control over populations that no longer automatically accepted their guidance. The humans have infected our children with dangerous ideas, declared Hive Mother Zexandra of the Clithar Collective. They're teaching them to value individual desires over collective harmony. Maybe, replied newly elected Clithar representative Pelinara, who had won office by promising individual rights for Hive members. It's time to learn what individual desires can accomplish when they work together by choice instead of by force. The old galaxy was dying, and something new was being born. Not the perfect, stable, efficient civilization the Confederation had created, but something messier, more chaotic, and infinitely more alive. The animals had become teachers, and their students were becoming something unprecedented, free. 10 years after the Krill War, Secretary General In-Young Kim stood before the largest gathering of sentient beings in galactic history. The Galactic Assembly of Independent Worlds met not in the crystal halls of Veltar Prime, but in the spinning wheel of Luna Station, humanity's gift to the new civilization they had helped create. Through the great observation windows, Earth hung like a blue marble against the starfield. But the real beauty was inside the station, where representatives from over 200 species worked together in ways the old Confederation never could have imagined. Friends In-Young began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast assembly hall. 10 years ago, this galaxy laughed at humanity. They called us animals. Today we gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals who chose to be different together. The applause that followed came from voices, clicks, harmonics, and sounds that human ears had never heard before. First, contact. But it was applause nonetheless, from beings who had learned that cooperation meant more than uniformity. Dr. Jamin. Yoon watched from the Galactic Innovation Council's observation deck as the Assembly conducted business in ways that would have horrified the old Confederation. Representatives interrupted each other, argued loudly, changed their minds publicly, and somehow accomplished more in ours than the Confederation had managed in decades. Director called his assistant, a young Veltari named Simera, who had abandoned crystal meditation for human-style engineering. The Breakthrough Fusion Project is ready for presentation. The fusion reactor they had developed violated every principle of optimal design. It was built by a team of 12 different species, each contributing technologies that shouldn't have worked together. Human chaos theory, Veltari crystal matrices, krill, biomechanical interfaces, and innovations from a dozen other worlds. It's beautiful, Samara said, studying the swirling patterns of contained energy, like organized chaos. No, Jamin corrected gently. It's chaotic organization. There's a difference. The reactor produced energy through controlled randomness, using unpredictable fusion cascades that somehow balanced themselves into stable power output. It generated 30% more energy than optimal Confederation reactors, while being far more resistant to damage or system failures. How does it work? Asked a visiting mollusk engineer. We don't fully understand it, Jamin admitted. We don't need to understand everything to use it effectively. Sometimes the best solutions come from trying things that shouldn't work. Admiral Bor Kwan stood in the command center of the GDF Harmony. It's a flagship of the Galactic Defense Force. Around her, Officers from 50 different species worked together using protocols that combined the best ideas from every military tradition. In the galaxy, the Defense Force's motto, suggested by a human child during a school visit, was painted on every ship: different together, stronger apart. Admiral reported Commander Thilmesh, Clithar, who had learned human tactical thinking. Long-range sensors detect unknown vessels approaching from the galactic edge. Configuration unknown. Technology level extremely advanced. The sensor readings with interest rather than fear. The new galaxy had learned not to panic at the first sign of difference. Send standard first contact protocols, she ordered. All languages, all communication methods, and prepare a reception committee. The unknown ships moved closer over the following hours. They were massive, elegant vessels that made even current galactic technology look primitive. When they finally responded to contact attempts, their message was familiar in its arrogance. Primitive species of this galaxy, the transmission began. We are the Zephyrian Collective. We have observed your chaotic civilization with interest. We offer you the chance to join our perfected society. Abandon your inefficient diversity and accept our guidance. Biora smiled as she recognized the pattern. Another perfect species. Another offer of absorption into someone else's idea of ideal civilization. Send our standard response, she told. The communications officer, the message that went back to the Zephyrian fleet was simple. Thank you for your offer. We appreciate your interest in our civilization. However, we have learned that diversity is strength, not weakness. We would be happy to establish trade and cultural exchange as equals, but we will not abandon what makes us unique. The Zephyrian response was predictable laughter. On Luna Station, elderly ambassador Hyen Woo Kim received the news of first contact with the Zephyrians while reviewing applications for the cultural exchange program. At 85, he moved slowly, but his mind remained sharp. Sir, his aide reported, the Zephyrians have offered to share their technology if we adopt their social systems. They say our current civilization is too chaotic to survive in the long term. Hyen Woo looked out at Earth, remembering another perfect species that had made similar offers years ago. The Confederation had genuinely believed they were helping humanity by offering to fix their primitive chaos.
Now, what's our response?
The aide asked. The same response we gave the Confederation, Hyen Woo said.
We're not broken, so we don't need.
Fixing the Zephyrian delegation arrived at Luna Station 3 days later. Their ships docked with mechanical precision. Their representatives emerged wearing flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with contained energy. They moved like dancers. It's perfectly coordinated and absolutely beautiful. Chief Researcher Mong Suan met them in the docking bay, accompanied by representatives from a dozen species, including several reformed krill. The contrast was striking. Perfect beings from a perfect civilization meeting chaotic representatives of a chaotic galaxy. Welcome to Luna Station, Myun-Soo said. We're honored by your visit. The Zephyrian leader, who introduced himself as Prime Coordinator Zelthan, looked around the docking bay with poorly concealed dismay. The facility was functional but far from elegant, built by multiple species using different technologies that somehow worked together despite their incompatibility. The station represents your greatest achievement, Zelthan asked. One of them, Myung-Soo, replied cheerfully. Would you like a tour? The tour that followed became legendary in diplomatic circles. The Zephyrians expected to see primitive technology and chaotic organization. Instead, they found something they couldn't understand, a civilization that worked, precisely because it didn't try to be perfect in the research labs. They saw technologies that grew and evolved rather than being manufactured to specifications. Living machines developed from human-krill cooperation that became more capable over time in the cultural centers. They witnessed art that celebrated imperfection, music that embraced discord, and literature that explored individual struggle. Rather than collective harmony, in the schools, they watched children from dozens of species learning together, taught that questions were more valuable than answers, and that mistakes were opportunities rather than failures. It's chaos, Zelthan observed after hours of touring. Organized chaos, corrected Xenocultural Studies Director Gae-Young Lee. There's a difference. How do you maintain social order without central control? The same way a forest maintains order without a central authority, Guyong explained. Every tree grows differently, but they all grow together. The Zephyrians spent 3 weeks at Luna Station trying to understand how chaos could produce such remarkable results. Their own civilization had achieved perfection through rigid control and unified purpose. They had eliminated waste, conflict, and inefficiency. They had also eliminated growth, change, and possibility. Your method is interesting, Zelthan admitted as their delegation prepared to leave, but ultimately unstable. Chaos leads to collapse. Maybe Hyanwu said, joining the farewell ceremony. But perfection leads to stagnation. We'd rather risk collapse than guaranteed death. The Zephyrian ships departed Luna Station with their offer politely declined. They returned to their perfect worlds to contemplate the strange galaxy that had rejected obvious superiority. 3 months later, their scout ships encountered something they had never seen before, a galaxy that fought back. The first Zephyrian exploration fleet met the Galactic Defense Force at the edge of the Kepler sector. The confrontation was brief but decisive. The Zephyrians fought with perfect coordination and flawless tactics. The Defense Force fought with creative chaos and adaptive strategy. "They're using our own weapons against us," reported the surviving Zephyrian commander. "Their ships adapt faster than our computers can calculate responses." "Possible," replied the Zephyrian High Command. "Perfect systems cannot be defeated by chaos." But they were wrong. The galaxy had learned something the Zephyrians never could, that the best defense against perfection was imperfection. And the best answer to rigid control was creative freedom. The war lasted 6 months and ended with something unprecedented. In Zephyrian history, a negotiated peace between equals. "Your civilization is remarkable," Zelthan admitted, when he returned to Luna Station for peace talks. "We have never encountered organized chaos before. We've never met another perfect species," Hyanwu replied. "The Confederation taught us that perfection and chaos can coexist if both sides choose to learn." The treaty that followed established the Zephyrian worlds as the galaxy's newest independent members. It's not absorbed into the collective chaos, but welcome to participate as equals if they chose to embrace change. As the ceremony concluded, Hyanwu looked out at the starfield, where ships from hundreds of worlds moved in patterns that seemed random, but somehow worked perfectly together. The galaxy had learned that different didn't mean inferior, meant opportunity. The animals had become teachers, their students had become free, and the universe was bigger and more wonderful because of it. They weren't laughing at humanity anymore. They were laughing with them.